Claire, let me share this with you. This is reporting from NBC News. Trump transition team is compiling a list of current and former U.S. military officers for possible courts-martial. The Trump transition team compiling a list of senior, current, and former U.S. military officers who were directly involved in the withdrawal from Afghanistan and exploring whether they could be court-martialed for their involvement. According to a U.S. official and a person familiar with the plan, officials working on the transition are considering creating a commission to investigate the 2021 withdrawal from Afghanistan, including gathering information about who was directly involved in the decision-making for the military, how it was carried out, and whether the military leaders could be eligible for charges as serious as treason, two sources said. Your thoughts?
Well, probably the worst thing we've talked about today, I think. By the way, though, they could take a shortcut. They could just go back and read what Trump agreed to. Trump negotiated this deal. Trump is the one who said there will be a date certain of withdrawal. Trump was the one who, frankly, facilitated the release of many of the Taliban that did the damage during the withdrawal. I mean, it was Trump. He did that. He was the one who dictated the withdrawal from Afghanistan. That didn't happen under Joe Biden. So that will be an interesting part of whatever thing they gin up in terms of looking into it. And, you know, maybe I am still holding on to some kind of sliver of unrealistic hope. But I will tell you this about the confirmation of all these guys. You know, these Republicans aren't going to say no until they have to. If this ethics report comes out and it is as damning as it's rumored to be in terms of Republicans saying this is unacceptable, then that gives them cover. They do not have to oppose Trump's nominee. The nominee is withdrawn or the nominee decides not to pursue. So they're not going to come out and say they're voting no on any of these until the process plays out. Because I think we do know this about them. They're always looking for political cover from directly confronting Trump. I don't think, though, when it comes down to it, that there will be a lack of 4 or 5 members to say no, particularly to Matt Gaetz.
The story about court-martials. I understand that it is very much on the table. We know from Esper's book that Trump wanted to do it to General Stanley McChrystal and Admiral McRaven. I also understand that the reason Esper writes about it is because there were bulwarks against it. I understand from all of our conversations that what is radical about Hegseth and Trump 2.0 is that by design, the guardrails are gone. Just take me inside the state of play and anxiety inside the Pentagon.
Trump telegraphs his punches. He tells you what he's going to do, and then he usually does it or tries to do it. And he's telegraphed his punches about removing the guardrails at the Pentagon since he was a candidate talking about Milley. He said he would fire Milley, he would fire C.Q. Brown, he would fire all these people. Now he's in a position to do that. So he's telling us what he's going to do, and we should take him seriously. We should respect that that's what he wants to do, and he wants to empower people to execute that strategy. And even if he doesn't, the chilling effect is tremendous. Right now, there are people in the Pentagon saying, am I going to get fired? If I get fired, how do I pay my bills? If I lose my retirement, where am I going to live? How do I keep my family safe? This is a very real conversation among senior leaders at the Pentagon. And if Trump wants to execute it, he's not going to say they're not loyal. He's going to take something like the Afghanistan withdrawal and try to use that as a lever to identify people that he can then remove the other way. So it's all exceptionally serious and beyond the politics. That's why I've always said he's not just a political issue. He's a national security issue. Mm-hmm. And, you know, there's nothing that someone like Putin would love more than to remove an entire crop of senior leadership from the Pentagon at a time when the U.S. is engaged around the world.
How can people protect them?
I think this is an example of where, like, the citizens are going to have to rally. If, for example, they fire a bunch of people at the Pentagon, people have to do what Trump supporters have done for war criminals, raise legal funds, create legal defenses, create PR teams, create a political operation to help these people and their families make the case to the American people, protect their benefits and their jobs. And if they lose them, they need a place to land, right? They need a place to get a paycheck to keep their families safe while this political storm continues to churn all around. around them. It is a very real possibility he could remove people from the Pentagon, and they don't have a job.
Who've done nothing wrong.
Who've done nothing wrong.
An institution whose hallmark is the chain of command.
And if he wants to talk about doing things like court-martialing McChrystal, people who were out, he's also talking about taking their retirement. Now, we know these names like McChrystal and others, but there are plenty of other folks that just served nobly for 20 years and don't want to lose their retirement. That's really what we're talking about by threatening to court-martial people, not just kick them out, but also take their retirement, their stability, their livelihood. And that's going to move some people closer to him just because they're going to want to cover their butt. And that's why this is so troubling and so should be a priority, maybe above all else.